All right, so this week we have Robert Ellis from Wales, and Robert, anything you can tell us before we get into it that you're maybe into outside of dogs, or is it just all dogs you're at?
Just dogs, me. Dogs are 24 hours a day.
Sounds about right. Sounds about right. No bar. Right. We'll get into dogs then. What age were you when you first started trialing, and who got you into it, or who helped you out?
Got into trialing. My father was trialing before me. I followed him around most of from a little one, really. And as soon as I'd be able to work a dog, I was sort of on the farm then and moving sheep and getting sheep in. And it went from there, really. I suppose my father's my biggest influence on my career. He started me off and went from there.
Yep, no bar. And would he have been running to trials all his life, or was it maybe just once you were sort of on the go, or?
He started sort of in his sort of mid-30s, and he was later in life started. And it went from there, really. And I sort of, when did I start trialing? I started trialing when I was about 11 in local novice trials, and from the age of 13 then I was competing in open trials.
Not right. Well then, no, that's dead on. Well, tell me this then. How many times have you been on the team, and how many times have you been on the Supreme as well?
Roughly about 14 to 15 times now. Yeah. Yep. That's and 3 world trials, is it? So
3 world trials, yeah. What about the Supreme? What have you been in the Supreme?
I competed in the Supreme. How many times have I been in the Supreme? I've been in the Supreme 6 times. 7 times, I think I've been in the Supreme, 4 different dogs. Managed two reserve placings, a third, and then down the list then a sort of 12th, 14th and a 15th. So a bit of a mixed bag, but it's nice to get into the Supreme.
You've been knocking on the door anyway, like.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. It's always a big challenge.
All right. So what would you say then would be, in your own opinion, what's your biggest achievement you've had at the trials?
Sorry, Adam. What did you say then?
What, in your own opinion, like what would be the biggest achievement you think you've had on the trials? What stands out the most to you?
I suppose coming second in the Supreme twice, I suppose, with Merck, my first dog, and then his son Todd. So it's so difficult when you get to that level. It's only tight margins then, and it was like coming second, sort of now the last Supreme with Todd. Coming off that field, okay, I didn't pen, but it was hell of a nice feeling, and when you're walking away, that the dog worked well for you, and you put up a decent show until the clock beat me then. So that was good. Yeah.
Nope. And you mentioned there you've been the Supreme of 4 different dogs. In your opinion, what's the best dog you've had?
The dog I got now, Todd, is the best I've had, probably. He's a dog that can work sort of different types of sheep and can adapt to different situations. And I suppose he's had his moments, but more often than not, he doesn't let you down. But he has let me down. But more often than not, he doesn't. But because when you get to the national and the international, you got to have a dog to suit different kinds of sheep. Because there's many good dogs out there that suit some kinds of sheep, but you can't pick your number, and you can't pick the sheep when you go to a national or international. In an open trial, you can select your trials or select your numbers really to suit the day, but when you get to that standard, you got to take what's in front of you.
Take what's given to you. Nope, fair enough. And Tell me this then. What would be the favourite open course you've done? Is there maybe a couple of courses that stand out in the open circuit that you would like to beat every year?
Well, I like a big open course, and there's not that many in Wales, so I tend to travel sort of over the bridge to England. You've got a good course in High Hills with Johnny Elkin there. There's a good course with Nidge Vass in Leicestershire.
Yeah.
Used to travel quite a lot to the Cotswolds there to Dick Roper. But he hasn't had a trial
Yes.
for a year or so now. But there's some very, very good courses there. So it's nice to go and test the dogs and see some different parts of the world, I suppose.
Aye, they sort of suppose with the success you've had with the dogs, they probably don't like seeing you turn up across in England. it's taking place in that place.
They have a good laugh when things go wrong. No, it's nice because you're catching up with friends and meeting different people when you're traveling away a bit. But no, it's it's how can I explain? Because I don't have no ground of my own, I got to rely on friends and family to go training, and I struggle a little bit with distance work, so I tend to go to these bigger courses, and it's like having a little bit of training also. Then when you're competing, ready for the big trials coming up there.
See, you're saying there you have no ground of your own. I was told you live in the town. Is that right? Or
say that again, Adam.
You're saying you've no ground there. I was told that you live in the town. Is that right? You're from the town originally, or?
I live in a village. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Small village. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I got about 7 acres to train my young dogs on, but other than that, I got to rely on friends and family to work my experienced dogs and give my older dogs practical work. Yeah. I tend to help local farmers in the summer gather on the mountain, on the hills there, and it's.
I've had experience
I like
with
to
dogs.
give my dogs practical. Yeah, I like to give them practical work, and that's I find where they learn how to work sheep and can adapt to difficult situations.
Yeah, no bar. And right, so your favourite open course, I like that. I like asking that to everybody I've been speaking to, because I don't think yet anybody's give the same answers. Everybody's there, like there's maybe 6 or 7 people, and they all have different open courses that stand out to them. Like with regards to international, what courses have maybe stood out to you? What did you think was the real pinnacle of the courses for the Supreme?
Well, it's when you go to get to the Supreme, you are up against the sort of best handlers and the best dogs in the country, and it's sort of how can I explain? It's a test for yourself and your dog then, and this year was a sort of a different test again because the course was tough and the sheep were tough. So every part of that course you had to work hard. A dog didn't have a break. Usually, some part of the course the dog can have a bit of a breather, but in the shedding ring even this year, the dog had to work hard to keep hold of the sheep and keep them in the ring, and because the sheep were just they brought the best and the worst out in the handler and the dog then.
Yeah.
And watching some of them dogs working and watching them handlers finishing off that course was good to watch.
Yeah. You reckon that this year's course then would sort of be the one that stood out to you then?
Sorry, Adam, this is correction.
You reckon this year's course then, out of all the internationals you've been to, you reckon this year's course is the sort of the best one then, or?
Well, it's one of them anyway. But I was in it, so it was a bit different. Gill Hall for me was exceptionally good course back in 2018 and in the World Trial there last year. That probably stood out as one of the best. It was a few good courses. You had the one in 2015 there up in sort of Scotland. That was a good course.
Yeah.
There was one when I was when I can remember, I was about 13 in Wales, in Margam Park, Bobby Dale and Wisp won that. That was a good course. I suppose a bit of favouritism because I was part of the local committee.
Yeah.
But the sheep were good, and as a kid then watching that, you think, how can dog and man sort of do this type of course? But as you come along, it's down to training and sort of experience, I suppose. But yeah, there's been some, like, not always the big courses are the best ones, perhaps. But it's nice to see people finishing in the Supreme. It's nice to see everybody having a crack and finishing it, and it's good to watch them.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Well then, tell me this: what sort of what type of handling? Say I don't ever. A lot of people that listen to this, I suppose, they'll maybe not see you unless they're at an international, or else if they're from Wales, obviously. But what type of what would you describe your handling? Would you be a very quiet sort of handler, or would you be a wee bit more vocal, or?
I suppose I'm quite vocal. I like a pushy type of dog, so they take a little bit of handling, I suppose. I like a dog to take control of the sheep. So if he's taking control of the sheep, I got to manage him a little bit as well. So yeah, I would. How can I? I wouldn't say I shout and scream, but I like to. I gotta take control of the dog. And Todd is the type of dog, if you leave him too much to his own devices, he does take over too much and puts a bit too much pressure on you and the sheep then. So we gotta keep him in check every so often.
Right. No, he's a nice dog. I'd like to be honest. I've spied him a couple of times, and I really like the look of him. So, what age is he now then? Or
he'll be 8 now. Come in next March. He's
he's another 2, maybe 2 anyway. Another 2 years anyway. You'd think.
Well, hopefully, if I can get 2 years out of him, it'd be great. Definitely need one because it's a struggle to keep him coming. Yeah. But he's he still wants to do it. Most dogs at his age have either gone over the top or getting a bit sour, but he's still there fighting me and wants to do it. So we'll see how it goes after next year.
Still a game off.
We'll have a good season out of him next year.
Yeah. No, right. So tell me this then. When it comes to judging, is there anything you like to see done and done right? Or I know obviously you want the whole thing done right, but is there an area whenever you're judging, you just like this has to be done to perfection, or else you're going to nail them on points? Or
well, yeah, I like to see a dog deep on the top of the outrun and lift sheep because I see a lot of dogs in the last couple of years really lifting off the outrun, and I don't like that. I like a dog to get in deep behind and bring sheep. I like to see a dog working sheep because there's a lot of flank. You see a lot of dogs flanking now rather than coming forward and working sheep.
Yeah.
I can be a sort of want everything to be done perfect, but it don't happen in the real world. But like nice straight lines, tight turns, if you can do it, it all depends on the sheep. And I like to see the dog take control in the shedding ring because there's a lot of people. They tend to make the gap themselves and walk the sheep off, and then call the dog in. But it's nice to see the dog come into the head of the sheep and taking control of the head on the head of the sheep, not on the back end of the sheep.
Yeah. No, it's funny you should mention that. We were talking not that long ago to somebody, and we came to the conclusion that some of the shedding, it's almost as if you're just calling the dog off. That's all you're really doing is calling off onto your feet, and they walk off along with the dog, and that's the shed accepted. Like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah. And we see a lot more. We've seen a lot more of that, and that is sort of it. Years ago, there was a very good handler. He helped me tremendous. John Thomas. He was from Gloucestershire. Passed away now, but he always liked to see a dog come into the head of the sheep. And
Yeah.
sort of, I'm not old-fashioned, but it's nice to see a dog come into the head of the sheep. It finishes the sort of shed off, I suppose, when he comes in and walks them away.
Mhm.
And I perhaps I'm a bit too old-fashioned, I don't know, but that's what I like to see anyway. And there's a lot of people now getting away with, as you were saying, dog coming in and walking behind the handler and the handler walking the sheep off. And if a dog comes in to the head of the sheep, walks him away, and gets clean points, great. But then you've got a handler then taking the sheep off, and the dog coming in behind the handler, and they're getting clean points. So
Yeah.
you're not gaining nothing from having a good shed.
Yeah.
So,
See, that's what I was asking you about the judging there, because again, I've been discussing this with people back and forth, and I like the way you were saying you want your dog deep on the outrun and then coming in and taking the lift, because it almost seems now, I think everybody's sort of maybe guilty of it to an extent. You don't mind your dog going a wee bit too wide in an outrun. You don't mind losing a couple of points there and getting them, getting outrun right. And again, the drive, somebody's thinking, or not the drive, sorry, the shed. People are maybe thinking themselves, I've had a good run here. I'll maybe take a risk of losing 1 or 2 points. And I'm sure I have this shed.
Yeah.
That's the two things I've noticed is the shed and probably the outrun. They don't mind losing a point or two in the outrun, and don't mind losing a point or two in the shed to be sure they have it.
Yeah, I understand that. You got to box clever, I suppose. It all depends what sheep you got as well. Because you wouldn't want to, like the internationalists here, you wouldn't want to take them on the head. You'd be gambling. So you box clever a little bit, but you've got to allow for that dog that does take them on the head. You've got to allow for that, and if it's the same on the outrun, you'll always get that dog that'll fall in behind them sheep nice and lift them sheep. And if it doesn't happen during the day, you've always got to allow just in case it does happen.
Yeah.
It'll be the odd occasion when it does, and then if you haven't allowed for it, he hasn't gained no extra marks.
Yeah.
So you as a judge, you have got to sort of be practical and use common sense, but always think of if it could happen.
Yeah. No, you're right about allowing for that perfect one. I say I've discussed it before on the YouTube here that that single that Jim Cropper done years ago, that was Guildhall, I think it was, where he came in and took that single. Like, if people are doing that single themselves a lot of the time and they were getting full marks, and then his comes in and he's, you need to allow for that perfect single as such.
You do. I remember seeing that. That was in Guildhall in the international. That was tremendous. In fact, the dog done that all on his own. That's
ridiculous.
You'll never see a single like that again, I don't think.
Nah. I don't think anybody. I suppose Jim Cropper maybe was bad in the hips at that time, but I don't think anybody that was maybe a bit more agile. I don't think anybody risked that single. That was some risk to take. Like.
It was, yeah. I don't know if Jim intentionally wanted to take the single, but the dog came in and took it, and it looked fantastic, to be fair. I don't think it was something you try regular. Not in an international 45.
No. And I say it was caught in the video, like as you say, it'll be a long time before we were talking about one the same. Like that was that's the best single I've ever seen anyway, like at that level.
Oh, it was unbelievable. I remember seeing talking about John Thomas in an open trial many years ago, and the shedding ring was on a slope, and he took the last one on the head on running sheep, and he called the dog in on the last one. It was like a totally different scenario because he wasn't an international; it was just an open trial. But the way that dog came in, stopped that sheep on the slope, it was something unbelievable. And it's not something that anybody would try. It's just that it was John, and John would do things like that. I was once told, leave the pretty stuff to someone else, and I suppose it is right. Don't take chances. But it is nice when you see that, or when it does come off. But it's getting now is more rather lose a couple of points and get your points than try something silly and don't get no points at all.
Yeah, yeah. No, makes sense. The right, another question that I've been asking this to people is any changes they would make to trials. So, like maybe some people there said in the national, maybe judges in a separate box, or someone had even mentioned lights, so you get a quicker answer of whether they'd accepted the shed or not. If you know what I mean. Is there anything that is there anything you think could be improved upon at the trials? Maybe tighten something up a bit better.
Well, sometimes when you are judging, you've only got a split second to deal with the situation. And when you're all split up in different boxes, it could be all sort of different reasons and sort of thinking about it. But when you're all together, at least you can discuss the situation. I'm not saying you all copy the same marks and judge them. Like everybody got a different opinion about a different sort of dog or a different sort of run. But I got no problem with them all being together. Because there is some situations where you have got to discuss something. And when they are together, they're quicker and get it done. It's like a shed or a single. Perhaps 3 of them 4 judges will want them to do it again. Perhaps one wouldn't. If they wouldn't be together, there wouldn't be an unanimous decision. So there'd be confusion. But then again, there is always sort of one judge that does take control of things. That is the downside to it, perhaps. But other than that, if you've got a good course director, that is the key probably to a lot of things, a good course director. If he's on hand to sort of, if they want a shed called again or a single or something gone wrong in the run, if he's there on hand, usually the problem gets sorted very, very quick.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Right then, moving on. Do you breed your own, or do you buy, or do you do a bit of both, or?
Dogs. I tend to have stud pups back and sort of train them up myself. I like starting the young dogs myself and training them. Because sometimes you can buy a dog and you've got to undo so much sort of other people's training to get them to what you want yourself.
Yeah.
Not so, and like it's like building a house. When you start training the dog, if the foundations are not done right, you'll always have problems somewhere. So if you make a mistake, it's your mistake then, so you've got to deal with it. But if someone else is sort of, and you want to rectify it, it takes a long time to get that out of a dog. So I tend to like to sort of, I have bought young dogs, sort of a couple of months old, and started them. But the price on dogs these days is hard to buy a nice youngster and at the right sort of money.
Yeah.
If it don't turn out, you've got to sort of pass it on then. So if you don't buy it for the right kind of money, it's hard to get your money back, sort of thing. So I tend to stud pups or pups and see how they come and train them on, and and it's a long process, but I can't afford to go and buy a trained dog at the minute with the price on dogs.
Yeah, no, Bar. And you're saying there about maybe if you're buying a dog and there's maybe bad habits in it and all, it's funny how they learn the bad habits very quick. They don't learn the good ones just as quick, do they, sometimes?
They don't know. Bad habits seem to stick around a lot longer too. But it's like every dog is like us. We've all got bad habits, and it's how we can control them and sort of nurture them. It is. Because I was once told by a very good trainer in Wales, he was Winford Japp, his name was, he could train the most difficult of dogs. He told me once, he said, Rob, you'll improve a fault, but you'll never get rid of a fault. And it's true enough, because if there's a bad fault there, you'll improve it. But when that dog is under pressure, it'll always revert back to that serious fault somewhere. It'll come out somewhere.
Yeah.
And like, we've all had good dogs, we've all had bad dogs. And usually the fault occurs somewhere during a pressured run or a pressured situation somewhere.
Yeah. No, it's similar, I think, to the rugby. You notice whenever the matches maybe get into that 60 minutes and people are starting to get tired, that's when maybe the high tackles come in, or somebody does something that they shouldn't be doing. It's whenever the brain's just not getting.
Yeah, that's it.
Aye.
That's it. Something usually happens during the game when someone's tired.
When the pressure's on.
Yeah. And it's the same with the dog. Usually when the dog's getting tired, he's usually at the shedding ring or at the pen, and that's when a grip happens or something goes wrong. Or that exactly what you were saying. It happens there. We won't mention the rugby though.
Oh, it's just Wales were singing from the Wales were singing from the rooftops a few years ago. No,
We'll stick to the dogs on that one.
no, they'll be back soon enough. Wales, they'll not stay down too long, I'd imagine. But tell me this then: how many would you be going through in a year roughly? Then, how many? You have them as pups. How many pups would you go through in a year cycle? Say.
It all depends. I got a few here at the minute now because I've been sort of let them dwindle, and I haven't had many young dogs coming through the last couple of years. So I got 3 there now. I need to start. There's 2 there at 7.5 months, 8 months, and I got 1 dog that's 12 months old now. Our nursery final was postponed yesterday due to the weather, so we got that next week. Hopefully that'll go ahead. Once that's done, then I'll be starting on the youngsters. Then if I don't reach the South Wales team.
Yeah.
I got a young dog running in nurseries at the minute. He's only 17 months, I think he is, and he's showing promise. So we'll see how he goes. But I'll take the pressure off him a little bit if we don't reach the South Wales team, and carry on with the young dogs then and see what I got through the winter. See if I got something I can
push on with
for next year or something for the future. Yeah, because it takes a while. I'm a little bit impatient sometimes. I tend to judge them a little bit too soon, but in the last couple of years, I have sort of left them to mature a bit and see what I have got at about 2.5 year old.
Yeah. No, it's funny you're saying there about taking the pressure off them. That's something I've mentioned there, just among all our friends in this island, that I've maybe judged a couple of nurseries or whatever, and right, your top handlers, they maybe have it down to a T, but there's all our good handlers, and they're maybe not the elite handlers, what I'm trying to say, but they're still quite good handlers. But they may be out with a dog in its first season in nurseries against all our dogs that maybe been out the second season, and you tend to find they're roaring and shouting at this younger dog, expecting that to be on the same level as a dog a year older. You're simply easing off the pressure. A lot of people can get caught up. I suppose the whole aim of the nurseries originally, is to improve a young dog. But some people nearly forget that now, and it's trying to win a nursery rather than trying to improve a young dog.
Yeah. Well, that's the downside of the nursery trials a little bit. It is difficult because we start off with good intentions, but as the season goes on, I suppose we have a little bit of success, and we've all got finals. Every country got a final, don't they?
Yeah. So
we all want to be part of the final. So we tend then to start training a little bit harder, and it's going from sort of working to training to intense training.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, then you've sort of soured the dog or overstopped the dog or done something. But the young lad I've got at the minute, he's taking a bit of handling. So he getting a bit tense on me. So I've been tending to give him sort of more flock work rather than intense training. But now I have managed to reach the final. We're back to a bit of intense training again. So after the final, I'll be letting him work. I like to sort of give him practical work before they get to nursery trials. For this young lad, I haven't been able to manage him so much in a work situation because I'm always sort of working with other people and their dogs, and he's been winding up on me. So it's difficult. But, and the standard of trialing, even nursery trialing, it has gone up 2 or 3 leagues, I suppose, compared to it was 15, 20 years ago. And I think that's where the intensity is coming from a little bit, because we were looking for perfection now from a 15-month-old dog or a 2-year-old dog, rather than sort of letting them come through the ranks and letting them be an open dog, sort of 3-4-year-old. But now, really speaking, a lot of these nursery dogs can win an open trial before they've even come out the nursery trials.
Yeah,
They're that well trained.
I've seen it big time that like even there's nursery dogs running in the opens and then they're just retiring. They're getting to the pen and retiring, but they're running an open course, outrun the fetch drive, and they're putting up runs that they're capable of probably getting placed. But obviously, if they're doing the nursery, they don't want to get placed, and they just retire and walk off. But as you're saying, they're at open level.
Yeah. And that unfortunately, that's the way it's gone, because I've done it myself. I run a nursery dog in open trial. But if I'm having a good run, I'll never walk off. I've done it once or twice now. I put my nursery dog out of nurseries before I even got there. Because to me, it's either you keep it for the nursery trials, or if you bring it out, it's up to you. But I think it's disrespectful with the open trial if you do sort of run a nursery dog, having a good run, you get to the shadowing, and then you decide to walk off. If you get in that far, you just as well carry on, or don't run it at all, because there's plenty of time for these dogs. There's plenty of time, because lucky for us, we are running against the likes of Kevin week in, week out, Derry Jenkins, a lot of good handlers, Angie Driscoll, David Howells, and it brings the best out in you, I suppose, because once you sort of competing against them, you know where you are, you know what you're going to improve on. But like from the 1st of October, we can get qualifying points for our dogs before the nursery starts.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, a lot of them nursery dogs are winning. So there's no need to practice in open trials for nurseries.
Yeah.
You just as well bring them out and see what we got. Because that's all you're doing is adding to the pressure, I think.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't go well in the open trial, then you tend to go home and train a bit harder, then ready for the nurseries, and the nurseries could be months, 6 weeks away.
Yeah, it gives you time to work on it.
That is a bit of, that is a bit of a bugbear that I got, but that's the way it is. So we'll just crack on.
So I know you're saying there, but you like your dog's pushy.
Yeah.
I've said this again to other people, like it nearly seems like there's 2 types of dogs now. There's like the dog that you want yourself for trials, and then there's a dog for the sales. And that's maybe less pushy, and it's looking the part that's maybe doing an open course at 10 months of age to sell.
Yeah.
You're tending then to work with a dog that maybe takes a wee bit longer to get to that stage then, is it? You're trying to work with something a wee bit more of an engine in it, or?
I want a dog because I can't keep many dogs, and it's hard to find the type of dog I like. I want them to last till the 9-10-year-old. But how can I explain? They are, unfortunately, we are breeding them for the camera now. So the type of dog I like, you can't sell it to anybody. You can only sort of selected people that want to buy them. But the dog that is doing everything at 10 months old is usually quite easy to work, and there's a lot wider field to sell these dogs, so it's easier to sell them. So that's the type of that people want to breed and sell them. So you can't blame them for doing it, but I don't know how the sheepdog is going to be in 10 years' time if we carry on down that road there. But I got no problem with these boys that are doing it for a living. I got no problem with it at all. But it is harder to get the type of dog I like. It is getting harder and harder. And I had a very good bitch that I thought in nurseries last year. Thought a lot of her. Nursed her because I had a feeling that she could be a little bit nice. So she had a lot of work, and I used a lot of flock work and made it. But then come this year, I could see her starting to open a little bit too much, and so we sort of found a good home for her. 'Cause I had a feeling that another 2 years and I'd have no dog left, and I'd rather sort of look for something that would suit now rather than because I think I run it in 12 trials this year. I won 8 of them, but how can I explain? I'm looking for a dog to go to a national, international.
Yeah.
And if she's starting to go too wide now, she wouldn't suit an international course.
Aye.
So it is harder to get.
Aye. No. And as you say, it's horses for courses too. Like there's a fella I'm friendly with there, and he was working all week, and it's maybe only really getting at the dogs at the weekend. And like as I was saying to him, like he might like a dog with a big engine, yes, but that dog's not suited to his system, if you know what I mean. It's not suited. If you're only going to leave that dog out a couple of days in the week, it's like having a Ferrari lying in the in a garage there, like, and just drive back into the town to get milk and back home again. Like it's no.
Yeah.
You need to get what suits your system as such too. Like I suppose.
You gotta have a dog to suit your situation, and how can I explain? I struggle in the winter with that type of dog because I'm the same. I'm working every week. I'm struggling with this young lad I got in nurseries now because he is a bit of a pushy sort and he gets a bit worked up here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not worried about this year. I'll give him a season work next summer, and then we'll see how he develops from there. It's time, it is. And for sort of Joe Blogs down the road that haven't got that kind of work, you got to have a dog to suit. And trying to find the dog to suit is the hard bit. Yeah. They probably know what they want, but trying to find that type of dog, that is the hardest bit. Because and a lot of people want a dog that wins week in, week out. And if you've got a dog that's a bit pushy, he doesn't usually win week in, week out. You've got to pick the courses for that type and the sheep usually. So
no, they don't suit everybody, but generally, if you're getting to that larger trial like that, the national and the internationals, you're saying that's the name sort of dog, Shane.
That's usually what, it's getting them to that stage is the most difficult. You've got to get through the nationals, through the qualifier and the international. Once you get to the Supreme, happy days. But trying to get, I've heard many people saying that if I could get this dog through to the Supreme, you got a chance of winning. But the hardest job is getting it through.
I get them there.
And that is the hardest part, yeah.
No, fair enough. Right then, tell me this. Newcomers, what would be your what do you think is the best advice for somebody starting into the dogs apart from not doing it? What would you advise?
Don't how can I explain? Watch the good anglers. Watch what they do. Read the sheep. That's what a lot of people don't do. They don't read sheep and they don't understand sheep. So get to know sheep. Get a good mentor, I suppose, and get friendly with someone that can help them. And find a dog that will suit them. Because we all start off and we all got a dog, and usually that's the one that is the best usually because we try harder with that one than any other one we got. But don't try and be too big too soon. Use small courses. Nursery trials are good to start off on because usually they're not too big and there's only smaller groups of people there. But it's unfortunately we've all had to start somewhere in sheepdog trialing, and it's not an easy thing to sort of start off and get success with, especially now in the last couple of years. The standard, especially here in South Wales, it's just gone up leagues and leagues compared to what it was, and it's daunting for some novice handlers because they're competing against these top handlers week in, week out, and they can't see no light at the end of the tunnel. But There are a few people now are putting on novice trials for novice people that haven't won an open
Yeah.
trial, which is good because they're competing with their own level and they're learning from that, and they can see um, where they got to work on it. When they're in an open trial and the standard's so high, they haven't got a chance because usually when they've lost enough marks, they're called off anyway because of the standard. But just watch and learn. And I was once told when I started work, keep your eyes and ears open and your mouth shut. And usually that's a good bit of advice for when you're starting off somewhere.
It's good bit of
Just
advice
take
for
it
life,
all
never
in.
mind
And
dogs.
exactly. Yeah. But no, it's not an easy thing to get into. Stick at it, plenty of patience, and keep practicing. And you'll get there in the end. It's like us all. If we all want to do something, we try hard. We usually get there in the end.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say to some youngsters, just or new beginners. Just keep at it, keep plugging away, try and improve. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And just
Right. So, moving on then. What three handlers? What three handlers? Well, you've seen the men that were at it years and years ago, and you have the current crop. What three handlers would stand out to you from the past that were, if you were to trial, you had to watch them? Like,
there's three of them. Well, two of them helped me a lot. That would be John Thomas and Irwin Daniels. One from Wales and the other one from England. And
yeah,
probably as a kid, then I'm growing up, Bobby Dale, Johnny Wilson, Johnny Templeton, a lot of them boys, sort of Gwyn Jones, Penmacno from North Wales, Wyn Edwards, Aled Owen.
yeah.
Well, Aled Owen's been about now, but he seemed to be about for years, Aled. But like them boys, them boys were in the team and in the Supreme regular, and they were different types of dogs to what we've got now. They were more sort of line dogs rather than flanky type of dogs. But they understood sheep, and they were sort of good to watch. It's like watching Dewi and Kevin and then Ricky and them type of boys now. But whenever they went onto the post, you'd empty the catering tent. They'd all come to watch that when I was back in the day. And it didn't matter what dog they were running, they always seemed to put up a run. And it's nice to see Bobby Dale coming back and running dogs now. He was such a sort of tremendous timing, tremendous handler, command he had on the dog back in the day when dogs, like he could put up a run 2-3 points down back in the day there. Whereas you don't, it was a lot of sort of work type dogs running back in the day, but his dogs sort of same as Gwyn Jones, Penmacno, then they were sort of trained and polished type of dogs. And it's like Irwin Daniels. I don't know if you've heard of Irwin Daniels. He was back.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah,
he's like tremendous sort of understanding of sheep and sheep sense. He was unbelievable. Perhaps never had the best dog in the world, but they were always well trained and he could get on with them. Then a lot of people wouldn't like him or wouldn't sort of work him even, but he could win. He could win a small little open trial with him, or he could go and win a big course with him. But they were well trained and they were well worked then.
I know we've a handler over here. I won't mention any names, but his dogs they're maybe not the nicest to look at or whatever, but he's a sort of fella. If you were to give him a Springer Spaniel, he would nearly get in the place and sweat. Like he always turns them out.
Yeah.
It's that knack of making them good. Like
that's right. Because there's another handler which I never seen too much of because he moved to America when I was young. I remember seeing him sort of winning the Supreme, but never sort of seen much of him after. It was Alistair McRae, and I had a good chat to him in the World Trial in Guildhall. We were chatting away, and I said, "Oh, funny enough, I was watching you on YouTube back a couple of months ago from some old international, and we were talking away." And he said, "Oh, to be honest," he said, "I remember the run you were watching." He said, "And my shed in there was terrible, so I needed help." He said, "And I was watching one man that day," he said, "that manipulated sheep. His dog didn't really do much," he said, because he was sort of frightened to move it. But he said he manipulated the sheep and shed sheep, he said, where I had a dog and I couldn't do it." And I said, he said he was a Welshman, and it was Irwin Daniels, and that's what he taught me, really, to understand sheep and sort of read sheep then. And it is funny how that cropped up, because we was only talking about that in that World Trial last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. And right, that's the handlers then. So what 3 dogs then would have stood out from the past that you'd have seen? So maybe, say that before the 2000s or something like that, or...
But there was one dog probably, he stand out. He never sort of made it on the big stage, but he was sort of one of the best dogs in the country at the time, and that was Pennant William Sweep. I don't know if you've heard of that dog. He could work many types of sheep, work on all different types of courses, and probably one of the best dogs in the country at the time. For me, another one would be Preseli Kiwi Kevin. Sort of very dangerous bitch, handful, but she had hell of a sort of understanding of what she had to do. I've seen it because I sort of competed against her very often. I've seen her in sort of double fetch finals, and he got to a final with her, and he'll tie her to the front of his truck, and she'll watch the first pack of sheep coming down the field. Whoever's it working will turn the dog back for the second, and she'll take her eyes off the first pack and look for the second pack. I've never ever seen a dog do that before. And when Kevin goes to the post, before he even sort of giving her this turn back whistle or whatever command, she's gone. She knows exactly where they are. And you can't teach that. That is just instinct. And possibly another 2 dogs I can remember back in the day was Ross Games's Roy, which is the father of Key. But I remember seeing him at 15 months old, and you could see there was something special in that dog at 15 months old. And I suppose as a dog, Aled Owen won his first Supreme with Black Dog Roy, his name was. Remember talking to Aled about that dog back not so long ago. And whenever Aled got to the shed or the pen with that dog, he very rarely failed to finish the course. And I asked him how were these dogs compared to him, and he sort of said that he stood out a little bit from the rest, I suppose. But I can sort of remember him winning the Supreme for the first time with that dog. And he sort of had a second and a few sort of touches just before the end with it, but he was so consistent.
Yeah. No, fair enough. And right, so that's the past dogs and past handlers. What handlers currently, around the world, like everywhere, home, away, wherever, what 3 handlers would sort of stand out to you? Is there 3 handlers now that, let's say if you're in the beer tent or whatever, and you're international, you have to see them?
Well, we all go to do it. We all go watch Kevin working. Dewi Jenkins is another up-and-coming good handler, won the Supreme, reserve Supreme champion. Only a young lad. You got Ricky Hutchinson in England. Is Fraser Shannon in Scotland. They've all been there, done it, and sort of worn the T-shirt. And there's a lot of good young handlers coming through, which is nice to see. Some countries are probably struggling compared to other ones, but every country has a turn. We all see that through the years. You think some countries are struggling, all of a sudden 1 or 2 good young handlers turn up from somewhere. And but there's still lots of good handlers I have mentioned out there. until you sort of come across them. Oh, I should have mentioned this one. I should have mentioned that one. But every country has got a good handler there that's more than capable of winning the Supreme.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I know. I suppose you sort of take it for granted almost sometimes. Like myself here, for example, like you're running against some of the top fellas in Ireland, and then you maybe see an international, someone from England or Wales or Scotland, and you're inclined to think, oh, just must see them. But you forget that the handlers you have at home are just as good, but because you see them every week, you can sort of.
Yeah. You take it for granted, don't you?
I take it for granted, yeah.
Yeah, you do. Because like you got James McGee, you got Michael Gallagher. I know Michael's in Scotland now, but when he was in Ireland, he was there. Like you got some, and when they all come together in an international, it's a bit exciting, really, because you're seeing the best probably in the world and competing against each other. Because like you got Serge out abroad, you got Joe Agner, you got Kara Mattisson, you got Joanna out in Sweden there, and well, there's many more. You got Alistair McRae, and you've got them boys out in America there. Because you don't see them regularly, you tend to forget about them a little bit. But when they come to a world trial, it adds to the excitement then, because you want to see them people because you don't see them very often. So it's it's like you got Alid. We like Alid been around for so many years. We forget like he's still competing against. He's still a leading handler now. If you think of some of the who's the best handler in the world, Alid's name will probably crop up every time. So we forget about Alid because he's been around for so many years, but he's still there and he's still punishing us. So there's so many good handlers out there. It's getting tough. You gotta. I remember Ricky Hutchison saying once that you gotta prepare, and he is right. If you don't prepare, you are struggling then, because them other boys are preparing for these big trials, and it's you gotta put the effort in. If the effort is done, and normally it benefits somewhere along the line anyway. If you leave things for granted, it usually goes wrong somewhere.
You must have got Ricky on a bad day. It's not too often he comes out with something sensible. Well, tell me this then. Outside of your own country, is there a country you like to see do well, or is there a country you have a soft spot for, like, or?
Well, you like to see everybody doing well, don't you? But probably back in the day, it was nice to see the Scottish boys when they were competing. Like you had Johnny Wilson, Johnny Templeton, Bobby DL, Stuart Davison. Back in the day, they sort of led the way, I suppose. But it's nice to see different dogs working. It's nice to when you sort of in a different country, you're seeing sort of dogs working that you haven't seen before, and it's nice to see because especially on the continent, there's different kinds of sheep out there, so their dogs sort of got to adapt a little bit different. We work different kinds of sheep week in, week out, because we got different breeds and different sort of kinds of sheep in Britain, in the UK. But out there, they got these stiff sort of, they haven't got too many sheep, so they've got to rely on what they've got, and they got to put up with what they got then. So their dogs got to adapt as well. And when they come to a world trial, especially in the UK, they're not used to flighty sheep, perhaps. And it's nice to see